Good evening and a warm welcome to all of you. Friends, this is the second session of Lessons from the Masters, which is sponsored by ABSL Mutual Fund. In Lessons from the Masters, what we do is take a deep dive into a subject which is close to your business. Our idea is to provide you a perspective, give you insightful, actionable points which help you grow your business. Today's topic is succession planning. And to do justice to that topic, we have with us Amit Trivedi. He is a known trainer and author. Uh, Amit actually needs no introduction to this audience, but as a formality, since it is my task, let me complete the formality. Amit has trained over 114,000 people, uh, whether it be CFPs, whether it be distributors, whether it be regulators, whether it be fund people, fund employees, and he's conducted over 1,400 training programs, over
Conference is being
130
recorded.
locations in the country. Okay. And of course, in the last 6, 7 months, he's been extremely busy conducting online programs. Uh, welcome, Amit.
Thank you.
Okay. Uh, Amit will be in conversation with K.S. Rao. He is the Senior Vice President and Head of Distribution Development and Investor Education. Uh, K.S. Rao has over 2 decades of work experience. He has worked in different functions in the mutual fund industry, one of the most experienced veterans in the field. His passion is investor education and distributor development. And to that extent, he's developed many initiatives which are absolutely unique in the industry. These initiatives are some of the biggest, some of the most original, and in fact, his effort has been recognized by global magazines such as the Asset Management Review, which give him the reward for taking the best initiatives in investor education across Asia. So, and he's also been recognized by Outlook Money magazine for his initiatives. So, welcome, KS, and
Yeah.
welcome, Amit. And now I hand it over to KS
Yeah.
to take the topic of succession planning forward. I'm looking forward to an exciting session today.
Thank you, sir.
I'm sure so are all our participants. Great. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Prem. Thank you so much. Thanks, Amit ji, for taking time and
Thank you so much.
spending this afternoon with every one of us. And everyone looks at your sessions always. Good evening, friends. I sincerely thank Prem, Cafe Mutual. We are all partnering with Learning from the Masters episode. This is the second episode which we are coming to you. It's all our intention at Aditya Birla Sun Life MF is to support our financial our distributors, our partners, or our advisors on various skills they need it, which is either for the business on day to day or business for the later part of the life to create a legacy. This is the one which is going to work for the legacy of you. When succession planning in the last 2 days, when announcement was there in the social media, when Prem and team has posted, I started getting some of the mails in the last 2 days. A while ago, I was sharing with Amit ji. Some of us looking at succession planning as a business for us, business succession, but many of us also looking at succession planning of our own money or our clients' money. It's an estate planning. Either side, let me assure you today, Amit will talk about succession planning as an MFD. What is that I need to do it? And the later part, we will also we requested Amit to help us to reach out zone wise to have a detailed workshop for the business succession planning that we will be doing soon. At the end of the session, we will be announcing you and sharing those links with you. And the second one, since I got a lot of requests on the estate planning from each one, soon we will have an estate planning
Conference is being
certification from us.
recorded.
Thanks once again for joining. Trust each one of you are doing well. It is a period of Navratri. It's an auspicious Navratri. May Goddess bless each one of you and your loved ones. And I'll straight go to the topic of succession planning. Succession planning is nothing but a vital. It's a roadmap converting your professional practice into an enduring business. And this will be like providing you financial security as well as you are providing a financial security to many of your clients. How many of times you did service for yourself, probably taking care of the well-being of your clients, your first step. And today let us think of taking the well-being of your own self, how you intend to do. And while it's the client first, it's like client interest first is for the MFD motto, but what is your business to succeed, even client need to know from you. And if like I have my MFD who with whom I work for last 20 years, who manages my money. I keep telling him many a times on my documentation, like what is the succession planning for you, and this is my business. How you are going to give, because for me MFD, though the name is very new, but for me MFD is something like M stands for me today is multi-generational financial distributor. You are not serving one generation, you are serving multi-generation. That is the reason your business continuity is most important for your client too. And not to take much time, Amit, it's going to be a fiery chat, and you may have to take us to various, various. And first of all, understanding succession planning to the way why I need to do, how I can plan, for whom I have to plan, what exactly it is for me as an MFD. And first question to you, Amit, is today after this, and thanks to you for giving a lot of clarity for MFD and RIA circulars, and it's a very nice. And at this point of time, I mean, MFD is running around and at regulatory requirements complete. And how do you look at this MFD succession planning? And will it be helping their family to reap the benefit, or will it be benefiting their staff, or will it be benefiting their clients? Why MFD need to have a smooth transition for his own or her own business? And over to you, Amit.
First of all, thank you so much, sir. And thanks, Prem, for this wonderful initiative along with Aditya Birla Sun Life Mutual Fund. In fact, I was just thinking, going by the pattern, whether you'd like to change the name of the entire series to Lessons from Amit's, because the first one you had Amit Bivalkar and today we got Amit Trivedi. But let me assure everybody, it's just a coincidence that two Amits happened one after the other. Now, coming to a question, sir, why doesn't MFD need to think of succession planning, business succession planning? Actually, as you very rightly mentioned, a mutual fund distributor's business is a multi-generational business, and many of us who spent enough number of years in this industry know for sure that there are a reasonably large number of mutual fund distributors who are today serving the third generation of their clients. And maybe in a few cases, there could be fourth generation also. Now, if that's the case, when somebody started into the profession, one was reasonably young and the clients were senior. Today, there is a possibility that the person is senior, the mutual fund distributor is senior, and the clients are youngsters joining the workforce. So if I'm at 50 or 55 and my client is 20-25, this 20-25-year-old would be investing for his or her retirement years. And we are talking about 50-60 years of investment horizon. And at an age of 50 or 55, I'll probably stop working much before my client stops investing. So that's number one. Number two, beyond a point, you also want to ensure security of the family, because this is an annuity business. The commission income comes in trail form, which means the income is back-ended. And in such case, whatever you created so far, can the family also reap benefits of that? So that's point number two. And point number three, if the practice has grown beyond a particular size, the chances are that one would have employees, and you also want to safeguard the interests of those employees because they have given their years to shaping your practice of mutual fund distribution, and you would like to ensure that they also benefit. So from that point of view, the continuity of business gives that security to the employees. If you look at all the three, then it is in the interest of a mutual fund distributor to think of succession planning and plan properly for it. So you're on mute, sir. Can't hear you, sir.
Thank you so much, Amit. But taking that why part first, I always believe, I think after every one of us reading Simon Sinek, of course, in Indian context, everything we ask why actually, but now Simon Sinek has proved us, ask me why. It's why I need to do financial planning, succession planning now. It is like, you put it very rightly, it is to realize the value and lifetime work of the distributor, MFD, and to helping their family to continue the business and recruiting the employees rightly and passing on to the next generation too if it is required. And last but not least is to preserve this business and protect the business. I think it's a very aptly said. And I'm also glad this second session is also by Amit. First session with Amit Biwalkarji, and it's a scaling of the business. And it's incidentally Prem has planned so nice. Scaling of the business with Amit is Amit is infinite, and it is an infinite. And succession planning also with another Amit is also, after scaling up, how I can pass it on, that is also an infinite. And either side, I mean, unfortunate part here is we have finite number of MFDs in the country. We need infinite numbers of the MFDs in the country.
We do.
And the second question to you, Amit, is one, you said why I need to do, but what are the consequences, say, as an MFD, if I am not planning, not doing succession planning?
So the consequences could be, it is actually, the why and the why not are very, very closely related. So I'll break the answer into three parts. Once again, let's start with the client's life. Let's say somebody actually can argue that does a client need the distributor to remain in business always? Can a client take care of oneself, or can a client find another distributor? Yes, those choices are available. I can't say that when a client is investing through one mutual fund distributor, the client will not find another good distributor, because there are a reasonably large number of good distributors around in the country, experienced, knowledgeable, client-centric. So we know many such examples. So is it possible that the client would find another distributor? Yes, it is possible. But in case the distributor has not planned, then the client is left on one's own to go in search for another distributor and go through that process all over again. It could be a short-term convenience, but it is short-term inconvenience, but it is inconvenience anyway. So that's number one. Number two, the risk is also quite high. What if the client comes across somebody who's not as good? So while there are a large number of good distributors, suppose the client comes across somebody who's not even a mutual fund distributor and poses as a knowledgeable person in the financial field. Now that's the risk that you are running. Third, the advice, incidental advice is what I mean. Okay, so let me be politically correct. But the reason why the entire portfolio is built, how does the client stick to that portfolio, stick to that investment that one has made for that retirement years or those 10-year goals? All of us know that during the turbulent phases of markets, the distributor plays a very, very important role of hand-holding the client, stopping the client from making those costly mistakes. And for that purpose also a distributor is required. So that's, as far as the client is concerned, that I feel that it is a distributor's duty to ensure that this long journey of the client continues to remain smooth. That's one. Number two, the family of the MFD. There is a provision in the mutual fund industry where the individual distributors can nominate the family member to receive trail in case of death. However, the trail would be payable only on the assets acquired prior while the MFD was alive. Anything after that, the trail is not payable on those assets is number one. Number two, the person, family member, I mean, if that family member is not an ARN holder, then one cannot even handle that mutual fund portfolio of the client. And in such a case, if the family member is not servicing the clients, then in no time the assets would go out because clients would not stick to the stick to the ARN code. The client needs certain amount of interaction, engagement, and hand holding. So now that's where the assets may not last till the time the client's goals are not achieved. And anyway, there is no growth except for the NAV appreciation. So that's the other side. While MFI has taken a very good step in the nomination facility, but it still practically one needs to see that the family's interests are protected. So that's number two. And number three, the employees. So if you have employees and if the business does not continue because the person is not there, then the employees would lose job. And if they lose job, it is possible that some of the employees may become entrepreneurs and take away some of the clients. But then the whole brand that you built, the whole structure that you built, that crumbles down. So if you don't do, then these are the consequences.
Thank you, Amit. It's such a detailed answer. It's I recall I keep traveling across the country, as you know, when I was interacting with some of them. In fact, my friend circle, I think majority of them are MFDs. I'll tell you one small story. This is at Trichy. One of the financial advisors, unfortunately, is no more. 2 years back, he's just 45 or 50, 46 years lost his life. But a couple of years before, his death, I was there. I was privileged. I had a privilege, but he has not only created a succession planning, and on that day, he has ensured 20% of the equity has gone as an ESOPs to his employees.
Wow.
And after his, like, since he is not there in the world now, but his business is nicely taken over by his family and the same employees, and AUM is like constantly it is growing even in his absence. That's
Super,
where it is.
super.
It's like
So that's a very nice example of somebody who's done very careful succession planning of the business. Fantastic example, sir.
Unfortunately, he never thought something will happen to him, but
Of course.
he did it at early stage, and I was so happy on one of the occasions giving the ESOPs to the employees by an MFD. That was a joyful occasion to be part of them. And all these employees are today the stakeholders. They are part of the business, and business, to be frank, after his last 2 years, I think they have grown up by 1.5 times.
Wow.
That's a classic story. I also say the succession planning is something. He used to tell me. He was a chartered accountant, and he used to tell me, I need to build an enduring business. Right. And the benefit of this is whatever I've created as of now, it is of my past labor. And it's also my onus and responsibility, which I promise to my clients, I will take care of you. In case I am not there tomorrow, and I am not there, but my business will be taking care of you. You don't need to worry to go to someone. That's the spirit of it. I think I can name him. His name was Mr. Gurumurthy from Trichy. He's no more now. It's very sorry. He's a wonderful human being. Now coming back, Amit, why part, it's very good clarity. I think we have quite a good number of people, participants are there. I request participants, any of your questions coming, either you can put it in Q&A box or chat box. We will ensure to address each of these questions. As and when you are getting any doubt, any question, please put it in the chat box. Let us have a very engaging session with Amit, and we can move on. And Amit, this is a question on what I think we have got it an answer of why of succession planning, and what exactly succession planning. And of course, there is a business definition which I can see. I can appoint my successor, and business can go smooth, kind of it. And what does it entail actually? What is that? Let us have a little more clarity on succession planning. Can we deep dive into it?
Yeah, so basically, as you very rightly explained about Mr. Gurumurthy's thinking, that even in my absence, my client's interests are protected, and I create a situation, I create a structure, I create a system which takes care of the client's interests. That essentially is what succession planning is all about. And for that purpose, it's important who are the potential candidates who can take care of that part, what kind of structure that one is operating in. So today there are, primarily, if I were to broadly say three structures: one is the proprietorship form, second is partnership form, and third is the company structure. And then, depending on which structure one is operating in, there are ways of doing succession planning. So that's number one. Number two is, can the employees take over, or can the next generation of the MFD take over? Can there be an outsider who can come and buy the business, or can you have a partnership structure where the elder partners keep retiring and the younger partners keep increasing their stake, and over a period of time the younger partners can be inducted? Various mechanisms, but it's a function of the structure that one has created, and then on the basis of that one can go ahead and decide how to really do the succession planning.
I think very apt again, Amit. I think it's like professionally transferring the relationships and assets to handpicked successor who can penetrate further and who can deliver these services to your clients, even if you are not there. That's the legacy you are going to create. Am I right?
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely, sir. And for that purpose, it's also essential that systems are created in such a manner that the change of person does not impact the pursued services by the client. The client should feel that, okay, there is continuity as far as the way I was being treated. That treatment has not changed. So those systems have to be created. Otherwise, what happens in, there are a lot of MFDs that all of us know. Some of them are extremely good at certain things, whereas some of the others are very good at some of the other things. If there is a change from person to person, will the client feel that the treatment has also changed? Just would like to bring that point. Yeah, that could be disturbing sometimes for the client.
Yeah, I think it's a fabulous one, the way you said. I was just thinking before I thought I need to have a chat with you. I was looking at MFDs and succession planning. I was looking at various other professionals with whom we deal. For example, I have my own family doctor. I have my own dentist with whom I go regularly. And I have my bank where I deal with my. But unfortunate part is, or none of them can have their succession planning for their business, because this dentist, his daughter or son cannot be a dentist at MFD, and he cannot have, until and unless he opens a clinic and he can, it's like nursing home and somebody takes over, then that's it. But if it individual practice will not continue. Here MFD, you have a great opportunity. I mean, I was reading this book of Professor Vaidyanathan, India Unink. Like India Unink, probably if somebody has to rewrite, MFD Inc. should be the first one to go there, because MFDs does a lot of stuff. And last week when Amit Biwalkar was telling I was telling him about one story. It's a one survey which is done by our Canadian partner Sun Life Asset Management, where the number of MFDs also decides the prosperity of the clients. More the number, more prosperity. I think now I'll go back to the next question to you. Since the succession planning, what are the options available? Like, do I need my next generation? Like I stay in Bangalore, lot of distributors who are today at 500,000 crores of AUM. Now their second generation is coming. But some places second generation is not very keen, but they are going for something else. How you can see what are the options for succession planning?
So this is a classic thinking in many cases, that my next generation would take care, or rather take over the business. And then I know many business families have behaved in that manner. So if I go to some of the small businesses around, then I actually see that the son or daughter of the owner then eventually takes over the business. Many such examples. But then there are a few issues there. Number one, MFDs who do not have children, well, this option does not exist. Number two, MFDs in whose case the son or daughter wants to pursue a completely different career. And take my example, of course, my father was never in business, but what my parents did versus what both my sisters and I are doing, completely different. And all three of us are doing something very, very different. And in case of our next generation, their interests are significantly different from what we are doing. The chances are that my son or my daughter would not take over my business because the children have different interests. So, but yes, next generation definitely is one of the options. And while I mentioned about the children not having interest in their parents' business, there are cases where the next generation is taking over and very successfully. And you also know many cases in Bangalore. I know a lot of cases at various other places. I mean, there are cases in the north, west, south, east, uh, and then some very prominent names. So that option is definitely there. Apart from children, the next best option, according to me, is if you created a partnership structure where a few people, two or three or five people have come together and created a firm. Now, I'm using the word partnership not in the legal partnership structure manner. It could be a company also where people are, working. Now, in such a case, because you got enough competence at that level, succession planning becomes easy, that a partner retires and the others distribute the work amongst themselves, and over a period of time, they can induct new partners. This is how many professional firms like lawyers firms or chartered accountancy firms, the larger ones, they operate on similar principles. There each partner runs one's own team and one's own clients, but there is an inherent succession planning done that way. So that's number two. Number three is employees taking over. So employees can be groomed in such a manner that, like in case of professional companies, now we've seen in case of HDFC Bank, Mr. Puri retired and Mr. Shashi has taken over. So that's a standard succession planning process. But for that also, the employees who are likely to take over or who are potentially capable of taking over need to be identified and groomed. It takes years. And if these three, all the three options are not possible, so children, partners, employees, all the three are not possible, then the business has to be given away to somebody. Now, giving away the business to somebody means either you sell the AUM, or you sell the whole business, or you merge the business with somebody, and over a period of time, you withdraw yourself from the business. These are the various options that I can think of. So again, you're on mute.
Noise, I am always keeping in mute. Sorry. Thank you so much. And this is a question again. The extension to what your answer is. Is there any simple formula I can look at? Who takes over? Whether it's children, whether it is partners, whether my team, or whether an outsider. Is there any simple way? Since you did a lot of work with practically with some of the cases, and you are not only I can say you are the practitioner of succession planning. Unfortunately, your business cannot have a succession because that's but of course it can give in a very different way, like the way your father is an author, writer, and intellectual, and you got the DNA, and maybe your daughter and son can get that. And
no, so I'll tell you, and thanks for bringing this point. But before we go on to the MFD succession, let me mention that I don't have a succession plan for my own business. I only have a succession plan for my personal finances, so to take care of my family, because between the three, family, clients, and employees, I have no employees, so I have to nothing to worry about on that count. Family, I've created my personal wealth, and there I've done my succession planning. Now comes the question of my clients. The kind of arrangement that I have with my clients is not the kind of arrangement that an MFD has with the investors, because in case of an MFD, you might have a client at 30 years for whom you are doing a 30-year SIP to build a retirement corpus. In my case, my clients are large companies or even sometimes smaller companies, but the A relationship could go on for years, but the consequences are typically, or the delivery period is typically short. Let me just mention the delivery period is shorter. So to that extent, I'm in a position where if I don't do succession planning, it doesn't hurt my clients also. Now coming to the question of who can take over. So I mentioned about these 4 categories, but there are a few qualities that one needs to keep in mind. And for that, I would like to share a couple of slides as to who can take over. So I'll share those slides right away.
Sure.
So first thing that we need to keep in mind is it's about the client. And to that extent, what the clients are left with is more important, or who the clients are left with. And I borrowed a happiness meter from the Riskometer. And while Riskometer has introduced the very high risk category, I would say very high satisfaction category may be introduced here. But it is the client's need, and you are primarily looking at that and then think of it. So if that's the case, a few basics that we need to keep in mind. And for that, I thought of 3 letters, T, A, and P, or P, A, and T, whichever way you want to look at it. But first of all, this is a trust-based business. And this trust, what does it mean? Mutual fund investments are subject to market risk. So we are starting with the word risk, but we are giving the investor a hope that over a period of time, if you stay invested, then over a period of time, you are likely to succeed in achieving your goals through this vehicle known as mutual funds. So it's a promise in the future, and a promise not in the guarantee way, but it's sort of a hope in the of achieving something in the future. On what basis does one believe you? And that comes from the trust. And that trust, as Stephen Covey says, trust is built up of 2 things. Number 1 is the competence or the capability of somebody to deliver, and number 2, the integrity or character of the person involved. So can I showcase that I have the competence and my integrity is of the highest order? Now, as far as an MFD is concerned with an existing client, you more or less established this trust. But now the person is changing. And for that purpose, at the time of identification, you got to use these filters that competence and character both are of a very high degree. So that's number 1. And of course, then it has to be communicated to the client that, okay, I'm passing on the baton to somebody who's trustworthy enough. So that is T. Trust is number 1. Second, and less you say the better. So many changes which are happening in this industry. Till February, we did not know that almost all the transactions will become digital at one point in time, and so soon. And that happened. Now just imagine that somebody was not adaptable to changing from physical to electronic mode of transaction. Or suddenly a regulation would come and disrupt the plans. And we've seen many of these things happening very regularly. There are too many variables. And when there are too many variables and too many changes possible, and not just regulatory, otherwise also, then you need a successor who's more nimble-footed and more adaptable to change. I've highlighted 4 areas out here. One is the the infrastructure or the platform that you use called the technology. Second is more mutual fund related, which is where the product and operational things would come in. And third is the regulation. Now, you may keep adding more and more parameters which contribute to the change, but is the person adaptable to the change is the second filter that you want to use. And third, whatever penetration the technology achieves, however the usage of technology increases, eventually this is people's business. You are dealing with emotions of people, and when it comes to money, almost everybody is emotional. Technology actually sometimes be very harmful, because what the technology does is it helps you do the transaction very quickly. But what you're telling the customer is, the investor is, don't do a transaction in a hurry. So there is a technology which allows the transactions to be done in a hurry, and your the discussion, your communication is not to rush. Hold on, stay invested. Now, that's where people would come in. A lot of coaxing would be required, a lot of cajoling would be required. You need to take care of emotions. And that's why it's important that the person who takes over is matured enough to handle this emotional part of the clients. So I would say look at trust, adaptation, and people skills. These are three filters in my understanding.
That's fabulous, Amit. I think, I loved your tap of the acronym. I mean, trust-based and adaptability and people-centric. Probably when you truly adapt to the tap, you're tapping it rightly, then your PAT will go up, right? After
Your
profit
pat
after
will go.
tax per
Your
capita.
pat will go up.
And
Absolutely.
your PAT will go up. And here the PAT today we are talking about is profit after transfer the assets to, like,
Yeah,
my
and
next
you know,
generation.
yeah, you know what? And if you are successful in this TAP, then the customer will give you a pat on the back.
That's fantastic. I think today, after all, client first. That's the whole intention. And let me also tell you one story which where I was privy to it. This was an MFD. I mean, in those days we call IFA rather. I mean, he was an IAS officer, retired, and
Mhm.
he took his agency and he continued. I remember when he lost his life, he was at 68 or so, and roughly this is a story I'm talking about 2003, and
Mhm.
he had something around 125 crores of AUM.
Mhm.
Unfortunate part is all his clients are super HNIs and HNIs.
Mhm.
They are just trusting him and giving. They didn't even keep the record of the things, and
Oh,
it has gone into haywire. And the business what he was earning, the income what he's earning, also lost because his children could not
yeah,
take anything out. That's where I feel succession planning is so crucial. We realize only after something happens to us. I think
absolutely.
that's one need to. I request everyone, maybe this Navratri, say, go back and see before you are writing the business plan for the post Diwali. Use succession planning also one of those part of things you need to deliver. Coming back,
Yeah.
the next, thanks for Amit. We have answered why, we have got what to be done, and who is my successor. Now the question is, how do I need to do it? I am perfectly fine. Why I need to do and what I need to do. I know who is the person. I can decide. It could be a child, it could be employee, whichever the way you said that. But what are the how part of it? And somebody has already asked a question there. Is a stepwise succession planning to safeguard MFD's family and clients against unexpected situations?
Yeah, so first and foremost is to decide that I need to do succession planning. Because in the chat box, I also see one question: is it mandatory for MFDs to nominate someone as part of his empanelment
I think
process with MFs? So that's not mandatory. It is voluntary, completely voluntary. So first of all, it is not mandatory, and if it is not mandatory, doesn't mean that it is not in your interest. Something which is mandatory for an MFD, and if I understand the regulations correctly, the regulator's mindset correctly, the regulator would make it mandatory for the MFD and mutual funds if it is in the interest of the investor. If it is in the interest of the MFD, the regulator assumes that the MFD would do it. If it is in the interest of the AMC, the regulator assumes that the AMC would do it. So there, succession planning, as far as the investor is concerned, you are doing in through nominations, etc., etc., and that's where uh, you know uh, the prompts are being sent when there is a single holder without nomination. But even that is also not mandatory. So similarly, this is also voluntary, it is not mandatory. That's point number one. But when it is not mandatory, and you don't do it, you don't nominate your family members, then getting the trail transferred to a family member would take a lot of operational hassles and running around here and there. A nomination makes this process smoother, and that's why MFI has introduced this process. Incidentally, I also know the background to this entire nomination process, how it got, how it came into picture, because when I was working in the mutual fund company, there was a case where one distributor who passed away, and his son joined the business. The trail commission was not paid for a pretty long period, and all were in favor of that, but we were not sure about the legal implications, etc. And to that extent, a lot of hassles were involved in those days. And then subsequently, all the mutual fund companies came together, and MFI's come up with very, very detailed process note on this entire nomination and payment of trail to the nominees. So to answer that question, as far as the first part of succession planning is concerned, because this is also the how part. The process is very, very simple, and on the MFI website there is a note available. So that's number one. Number two, you may also sell the AUM alone to somebody, and for that also the detailed note is available on MFI's website about how the AUM can be transferred. The condition here is, number one, the entire AUM must be sold. It cannot be part AUM. So, and anyway, we are talking about succession planning, so you'll definitely look at entire AUM. That's number one. Number two, the seller has to surrender the ARN. So it is sort of a non-compete clause kind of a thing, that once I sell off the AUM, I don't want to create another mutual fund distribution business. So that's the sales part. The third is where you want to give it to your son or daughter. Now, in that case, also the basic mechanism is that, or let's talk about an individual MFD, sole proprietorship, not a firm structure. There is an MFD and there is a daughter MFD. Now, both have individual codes. In that case, one can put the daughter's name as the nominee under the first ARN. So in the case of death of the father MFD, the daughter would continue to get trail commission on the assets which are held in the name of father MFD, and all the fresh business can be booked in the daughter MFD's ARN. So that can be done. The only thing is, whatever SIPs are running, you'll have to stop all these SIPs and restart in the new ARN. That's one. However, if the father MFD, and it's not only about death, but let's say somebody wants to retire from the business. So the father MFD wants to retire, then the entire AUM of father MFD can be transferred to daughter MFD. Again, that AUM transfer is allowed. The third arrangement in this case could be the father and daughter become partners in a partnership firm. And over a period of time, father's partnership share can be transferred to the daughter or whoever else they eventually think of. But that can be done. And ditto for a company structure. You can create a company and the shareholding of the father can be transferred either through nomination succession process on the shareholding, or by gifting, or through will, whatever way. So that can be done. This is individual. But if there is a partnership or a company, then it's a matter of changing the share of the partnership, or transferring the share of the partnership, or transferring the shareholding. So that's really the how part of shift that can take place.
Thank you, Amit. That's a very, very detailed one. It's so elaborate. I can see the consultant in you, where you helped many of the MFDs on their business succession, and it's nice of you. But looking forward, this is one part. What you said is fine, but today, when I speak to some of the MFDs, they say they want to sell the business to someone. They want to join together something. What are the factors they need to keep in mind while they are selling the business? How they can go about it? Because some of them, they want to, like, not exactly wind up, but join someone later as an employee or the partner.
So, I think selling the business is, it's a weird thought, but selling the business is probably an easier solution than merging. Because
Okay.
when you merge and when you come together, it's important that the mindset or the thinking is reasonably similar.
Mm-hmm.
Take for example, let's say a person X and person Y, they want to join together. Now, let's assume that the person X is living in a very posh locality in a metro, and person Y is living in a B30 town. Now, the cost structures are very different. What the person X can think of, the person Y can't think of, because those are not the costs that one has incurred. Take, for example, employee salary. At what cost would an employee come? No, it's these kind of things that I'm deliberately taking a sort of exaggerated example, but even within city also that is possible. These kind of differences, or the culture in which one has grown, or one is handling super ultra rich HNIs, or somebody handling absolute retail clients. That matching of mindset is important. Number two is, somebody is a very hard worker and puts in 18 hours a day. The other person is a little more chilled out and does not want to be in the office beyond 6 hours a day. Then the mindsets are different. So this is one thing that one needs to be very critical about, and without that, it's not possible to stay for long. So that's number one. But the same principle which I mentioned earlier does apply. It's the investors' interest that is paramount. Yeah. So that's more important. Now comes the question of consideration, commercial consideration. So whether it is a merger or whether it is selling the business to somebody, either ways, the valuation question would come in. And when you want to sell, the AUM can be sold, but you may also want to consider selling the whole firm. Because let's say AUM can be sold, but if you are in any other business other than mutual funds, how do you sell that business? How do you transfer the revenue of that business? So these become a big question. So let's assume that you want to transfer the whole business. So in that case, there are two things that I would like to mention about valuation, because I think when you want to do a transaction, valuation question would come in. So let me share a couple of slides out here once again. So first of all, just to quote the guru of valuation, Professor Ashwath Damodaran, he says whenever we look at the valuation question, we almost always start with some biases. We are biased. And what is it bias about? If you are a buyer or you are a seller, both operate from different biases. So because this is succession planning question, I am looking at it from the seller's point of view. Seller has to understand three things about valuation. First of all, number one, valuation is not a percentage of AUM. It cannot be the starting point. So there are a lot of discussions that the business was sold at 2% of the AUM or 3% of the AUM or whatever it is. In the AMC business also, we have heard this number. Now, I'll tell you why it cannot be done. But if we don't look at AUM, somebody may say, yeah, it is possible, because you may have different asset mix. higher equity, lower equity, SIP, SWP, what kind of business you built. That's why AUM is not the right parameter. So somebody says, okay, then look at multiple of income. My submission here is, let this not be the starting point of valuation, because in financial market, valuations happen on, there are two popular ways of valuation. One is the discounted cash flow method, where you are looking at absolute valuation of the firm's based on the firm's ability to generate free cash flow in the future. So that's an absolute valuation. The firm is valued independently of anything else. On the other end, there is another approach called relative valuation approach. And in relative valuation, you are looking at let's say in a listed company, you are comparing P ratio of one firm with the P ratio of another, price to book of one with price to book of another. In mutual fund distribution space, how many companies are listed? So where is the benchmark market driven price? If that is not there, is it fair to look at this parameter? Is number one, because there's no market driven metric. I know that FMCG companies have a certain P ratio in comparison to a power utility company, a power distribution company, let's say. So in both the cases, the P's are different, and these are market driven numbers. So I can easily make certain assumptions depending on what business I'm in. MFD, because the business is not listed, we don't have a benchmark. So that's where I'm coming from. And in such a case, valuation as a percent of AUM or valuation as multiple of income should be seen as the outcome of the deal and not the starting point of the deal. The third point is where emotional attachment comes in. So let's understand that valuation is not a function of the blood, sweat, and tears that you invested in the business. That investment has gone in the business. You sweated, you slogged, you done whatever it was required to reach whatever level you reached, and hats off to you for reaching there. But look at it from the buyer's point of view. The buyer would say, all that you've done is perfectly fine. It was required at that point in time. But if I put in money today, what am I going to get in the future? So I'll only pay a price in line with what am I going to get in future. So this is something that we need to remember. And if that's the case, let's look at some of the factors that influence the valuation. Now, as I said, absolute valuation versus relative. Absolute valuation depends on the future cash flow. So the first thing that we need to look at is, what is the quality and sustainability of that cash flow? And now what contributes to this quality and sustainability of the cash flow is, number one, the size of the AUM. If the AUM is very, very small, people won't even bother to spend time on that. So if the AUM is very, very small, forget about selling it to somebody. The buyer may or may not be interested also. In such a case, will family member or an employee take over? Yeah, quite likely. Second, client mix. What kind of clients that you have? HNI is investing large sum, retail building their assets, youngsters building assets through SIPs, retired people withdrawing through SWP. What kind of client mix that you have? Third, what is the depth of client engagement? How strong is your client relationship? That decides the longevity, and the longevity is reflected in the trail income over the future. Then asset mix, equity versus debt versus liquid versus within equity also active versus passive, all these parameters. And I don't have to really tell you much about how much will be the trail income depending on the asset mix. Fifth, how strong brand that you created, and I mean, all the three: brand image, the value proposition, and the expertise of the firm. And is it independent of the main person, the owner who wants to retire from the business? Then the risk is very high. So let's say, as Rao sir was mentioning about me, in your case, there can't be succession planning, because in my case, everything is around me. I am the center of that universe called Amit Trivedi's business. And in that case, the moment Amit Trivedi is out of the business, Amit Trivedi's business does not exist. Think about it. Is your brand only centered around you, or is there something else? Next, if there is staff, then how long you've been able to retain the staff, and how thick is the staff's relationship and ability to get business from the clients? And finally, because this is a function of this, if the staff can get more business, then the dependence on MFD, the individual, is lower. And finally, is there a system at work where clients are acquired automatically without an individual? A lot of MFDs say that, I only get client through referrals. Wonderful. It's a very, very powerful way of getting clients. But if the clients are only coming because of one person, then succession planning will be very, very difficult. So this is how I would look at the valuation, look at these parameters, and then strengthen the parameters which improve the quality and sustainability of cash flow, work on the parameters which are weakening the quality and sustainability of the cash flow. Sir.
Thank you. Thank you. It was much more detailed. I'm sure, friends, it has given a lot of ideas how we can look at our valuations. To put it in simple terms, this is all whatever you are getting the valuations, which is a reward for the time you have spent in the business and the money you got into the business and the talent you brought into the table. And I look at it as a cash flow plus equity you are getting there, which is equivalent to reward. I think that's where we can look at. But each of the business is very different. I'll ask next question on the extension of what you said on the valuation, Amit. Today, if somebody is looking at one of those processes, if they adapt, what kind of payment methodology they need to adapt? Is it the full payment or part payment, or it's like partially cash on? I can cash out partially and I can stay back in the business.
Yeah. So my suggestion normally, and I've been involved in a couple of cases where somebody sold the business to another entity, whether it was person or a firm. In all these cases, I have recommended, and very strongly so, that the payment should be made over a period of time and not everything at one go. The reason is very simple. There are quite a few steps involved in that entire transfer of business or assets. So let's take only the transfer of AUM case, where a distributor A has an ARN 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever. I mean, I don't really want to take a number, otherwise somebody would assume that it's that person's number. But let's say there is an ARN holder and there is another ARN holder. Now, when the AUM is transferred from one ARN to another ARN, in that case, the AUM has to be transferred for each AMC individually. I mean, there's no single process that AMFI would transfer. AMFI doesn't transfer. Each AMC level, it has to happen. And for that, a certain process has to be followed. So that process is, I mean, detailed in on the AMFI website. It's available. Go to the distributor area on the AMFI website, and you'll find those circulars, relevant circulars that I mentioned. And I really, would request each one of you to keep visiting the AMFI website for updation of all these circulars, because you'll get a lot of your questions answered if you read those circulars. So very, very rich in content that way. But coming back to this point, so the way I had recommended people was, number one, at the time of signing up the deal, so when both parties agree to the deal, that's when one payment has to be made by the seller to the buyer. The next payment happens when the process of AUM transfer is initiated. Okay, this is initiated. The third part of the payment would be made when the AUM transfer is complete with the top 5 AMCs. The top 5 AMCs would generally account for 70 to 90% of the AUM in many cases. So that's why we had kept around that. The fourth is when the outgoing outgoing MFD introducing the new MFD to the top clients. Now, there also we had worked out a process that the top 10% of the clients, there is a one-to-one meeting. Next 50 to 60% clients, there are group meetings. And the bottom, there you send a written communication only. When all these things are over, then some payment has to be made. So when entire AUM is transferred and all the clients are contacted, that's when the final payment goes. Now, the the buyer's interests are protected in this case. But what about the seller? What if the buyer doesn't make the future payments? So there is a possibility where bank guarantees can be issued, and banks do provide bank guarantees in such cases. So this is one approach. The second approach is when the seller, or rather the person who wants to exit, over a period of time wants to exit, so comes and joins this business and stays with that business for a period and then gradually withdraws. Both the approaches could be worked out depending on what situation one is in.
Thank you, Amit. I think it's an elaborate discussion on why, what, who, and how, and it's a very big clarity. There are a lot many questions are coming from the audience. Before that, I'll put one question, and later we can take questions from the audience. I think it's a quite engaging and interacting questions are there. And friends, we will also be posting exclusive workshops. We will be doing zone-wise for succession planning. That link is being posted once again, and you can register for whichever the zone you belong to. Or if you would like to, get this entire program in English, join the South. If you want to listen entire program in Hindi, join the North group, whichever is, we are flexible on that. Now, Amit, I'll go to the next and last question on the succession planning before I take the question. It's like, now when to start this succession planning? Somebody you are looking at age, or somebody you are looking at AUM, or somebody is looking at, enough is enough, I want to retire.
Sir, actually, in some very interesting conversations I've heard about succession planning, and I'm now referring to the client's succession planning. So when should a client's will be returned? The will must be returned the day the first asset is created. And when is the first asset created? The day of the savings account is opened. That's the first asset that one has created. Now, similarly, in case of an MFD, what is business succession planning? The day the business is created, there has to be a succession plan. I mean, very simple. However, as Warren Buffett loves to say, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The next best time is today. So if you not planted a tree 20 years ago, the next best time is today. Because if I wait that, okay, the day I want to retire, then I will start my succession planning. Believe me, and I'm telling you from experience, trouble does not send any advance notice. Roughly, slightly less than 5 years back, I did not know what can happen. I had not stayed a single night in a hospital for myself, and I landed in an ICU. It does not come with prior notice. The earlier you decide on succession planning, the better it is.
Thank you. It was a little emotional too, Amit. That's like you said, the investment when it is starting from the first check to earn, and the succession planning should start on the business you are into it. And right across, I look at it could be a great opportunity for every one of us. Post latest regulations, most of our MFD friends are busy. Thanks to AMFI for proactively providing a lot of support at the AMFI website now, which name to choose, what to choose, and there is a help desk which is available. But at this point, a lot of us are trying to change the name and change the way we want the business. Probably simultaneously, if we can plan succession, then that would be a fantastic thing to go. And it's always MFD is very unique when I compare with anyone. It is they are unique because you own what you do because it is your business. And every MFD is very unique. The person from Belgaum or the person from Bangalore or person from somewhere in the Bagdodara will be very, very different. They are unique. Yeah. And they are responsible for building something that should outlive them. That's the legacy which they need to create.
Absolutely.
I think with that legacy, they need to get on. and it's like right plan is always required. Then before I sum it up, I'll take the questions, then I sum it up the
Sure.
entire session. Uh, I'll start the questions from the Q&A. Friends, in the meanwhile, any questions, please use Q&A or chat. In the chat, we are providing you the link where we are going to organize separate exclusive workshops on succession planning zone-wise. And these workshops will help you like not only the just succession planning, how you can define your goals, how you can set up your realistic timetable to have a succession, and what kind of valuation with the concept of equity, or how to build a business by creating a right succession plan or setup, and what is a continuity plan to protect your business and to build the business. We are laying down a lot of stuff around. It's going to be a 120 minutes workshop at every place. Please join there. And we are also giving a estate planning certification. Little later, we can work with you. And if you want to create that kind of legacy, please do register for any of those days which is convenient for you or the zone you belong to. Now, Amit, I'll go for the questions. Some of the questions you already answered, but having done, if you can just touch it upon. For example, here is a question coming from Mr. Narendra Gangakedkar. He says, how to value business while selling or passing onto MFD business, which you have answered some extent there.
Yeah, so basically I normally prefer the discounted cash flow method, which means you will have to put some projections about the future cash flow, and then try and work out the present value of that business. And that's the method that I normally prefer in valuation of business. Having said that, there are a few assumptions involved, and to that extent, the numbers could be though there's a model, the numbers could still have some amount of subjectivity. So you need to be careful about that. But there's no better alternative that I've come across.
Yeah. I think, extension to that question from Mr. Narendra only. They say, does the nominee of MFD to be ARN holder to get trail commission?
No, so sir, nominee does not have to be an ARN holder for getting trail on the assets built up prior to the death of the ARN holder. So if a person was an ARN holder and let's say till today one had accumulated a certain amount of AUM and till the date of the death. Now, the trail would be payable to the nominee on that asset. Any asset acquired under that ARN, and nobody would actively acquire, but what if an SIP is running? Yeah, so that future assets, no trail would be payable. However, if the nominee wants to take over the business and continue to get trail on future business, then one needs an ARN, and the new business has to be booked under the new ARN.
There is an interesting question around that again. This is a Maheshwari, and nomination is to be made with all AMCs individually, or it can be incorporated at KYD. Is there any separate procedure?
No, I think that it has to be done at each AMC separately.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now I'll take some of the questions on the chat box. Quite a good number of questions, and a lot of praise for you, Amit. And it's so nice. Here is a question coming from somebody. Suresh said, "Yeah, late Krishnamurti Gurumurthy has done amazing stuff." Suresh ji. And here a question coming from Sumit Agarwal: how to make succession planning step by step, which you managed to tell there. How to focus client acquisition plan, which is the most important for the business in relation to that.
No, so client acquisition, my sense is, can you have a strategy for acquiring new client on a regular basis? Whatever activity that you take up for that, even if it is referrals where the references coming because of the MFD, but is there a process to get more and more referral from all the clients? And is there a backup to the main MFD, and new clients may be passed on to the employees? So you have a client acquisition process in the pipeline created that way. Or are you using seminar marketing, or are you writing newsletters, or are you doing activities on social media to acquire clients, where it is possible to highlight a name of a firm? So I could say Amit Trivedi's training academy, which is also perfectly fine. Now, it does not mean that Amit Trivedi has to be present for all the training programs. I have to highlight in my marketing that the academy is bigger than Amit Trivedi. So even if you are running your business in your own name, which is perfectly fine, highlight that the firm is a bigger entity than that individual. So in all the clients' cases, the individual may not be available. And there are a few such businesses that we know in the MFD space where the business is in the name of the main person. The ARN is held by the main person, but the employees are taking care of the clients. So ensure that there is a process for acquiring clients and the clients come to the firm and not to the individual. That's what I meant.
Thank you. And here is one question has come by Mr. Suresh. When you said succession, when family is taking over, family members may also appoint a CEO to continue that business, and the company is going if they are unable to manage themselves. I think he is very right. The next,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Wonderful point. Wonderful point. And then, I mean, it can definitely come from somebody like, is it Divi Suresh?
yes, he is Divi Suresh.
So, I mean, yes, the moment you said Suresh, I thought so. Now, yes, the family can appoint a CEO, but we are talking about succession planning. So while that is an option, we are talking about succession planning by the MFD. So instead of leaving it to the family, it is better that the MFD himself or herself initiates that process and identifies a CEO so that in a state, emotionally low state of mind, the family doesn't have to search for a CEO. You can do it right now. So it's better to dig a well before the town has caught fire.
Yeah, I think there is a special thanks for you from Suresh here in the chat.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
And this is a question from Ankur Kulkarni. How to share the cost oblique profits in merging two or more MFDs or revenues?
So when you're merging, I think at some point in time, then you have to run one P&L account. You can't run two parallel P&L account in a merged entity. I mean, it could become very, very difficult. So we are not talking about divisional P&L accounts, is what I'm assuming. Yeah, somebody may stretch it to say that, yes, I can run two separate entities within one firm, and but there would always be some shared costs. But what I would suggest is the process of merger is where the valuation of the firms must be done. Now, the valuation can be done as of current day's valuation, and then during the process of integration, you may decide that both the businesses would continue to incur some of the costs themselves, and only later those costs would be merged together. But take, for example, the moment you're merging, the technology cost, the HR cost, the accounts department, marketing and branding cost, compliance cost, many such areas would become common. You may say that, okay, X division takes care of the client acquisition for X division, and Y division takes care of client acquisition for the Y division. That can be segregated. But beyond that, many other costs would come common. So you may run the functioning that way, as if I were to use the typical accounting jargon, then cost of goods sold can be separate, but the other fixed costs have to be common.
Another interesting question, since you said about mergers, now there is a question coming in. In your experience, is it intercity or intracity merger works better?
I think cities are not so important. The matching of mindset is more important. Understanding one another and having that sort of accommodative approach is what works. It doesn't really matter. So, and take for example Amit Biwalkar's case. Sapient is sitting in Pune, but the chairman is sitting in Bombay, and we've got Pallav Bagadia who's in Guwahati, and they are successfully and beautifully running the whole operation. So it's not probably fair to say that intercity could pose more challenges. The moment there is accommodative nature, the moment the interests are taken care of, and there is a mutual respect and trust, then it's likely to work far better.
Yeah, very nice, Amit. It's like, merger is not always a marriage of convenience, rather the marriage of values and mindsets. Then they can continue for longer. It's this business they need to grow. It
So
is very,
it's not. Nick Murray has said this about the, and again, because Nick Murray talks about USA, I'm using the word. He says advisor-client relationship is always built on mutual trust and respect.
absolutely.
I think it applies to mergers also in the same manner.
Absolutely, absolutely. Here is a question coming from Swapnil Gandhi. How to do, I mean, should successor pass AMFI exam? And what are any other formalities, or there is any SEBI rules around it?
Okay, so if the successor is supposed to run the business, then the NISM 5A certification exam one has to clear. So that's very clear. But other than that, are there any specific SEBI regulations for the successor? No, SEBI has no specific regulations for successors. All the regulations as applicable to a mutual fund distributor would be applicable to the successor the moment the successor takes over.
Absolutely. I think, Amit, we have a lot of questions, probably paucity of time. We may have a couple of more to conclude. I will take the next question coming from is, uh, this is again nomination part. I'm not finding any other very questions which otherwise you have not addressed in the session. But Amit, I look at the, if to sum it up, I loved your TAP. It's a fantastic way, and probably the why the succession planning is, it's always it is the best way to realize the value of a lifetime work of an MFD.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's what I learned from the session. And second is how you can, the way to recruit the next generation talent to grow your business so that MFD remains MFD, that is multi-generational financial distributor for them. And the last one is, it is the way to preserve what you did it and protect what you are doing and pass on the legacy. And it's also to build a bigger business, stronger business, and enduring business. I think fantastic, Amit. I'll hand over to Prem. Friends, thanks for taking time and joining us. Indeed, it's a great pleasure to meet you all through the learning from the masters. Now, Prem brought so far two masters. Both of them come with rightly with the name Amit, knowledge Amit, expert, their mindset Amit. That's the way. And I also wish you all Amit of festivity, that is the infinite celebrations of the festivity. And may this Navratri bring all the joy, cheer, before we come for the next master in the Diwali. Wishing you all a wonderful festival time, but stay safe, stay happy, and mutually for us, MFD should have one gratitude to your family. Second is to the divine. That's where MFD, my FD is also there. And over to you, Prem. And thanks, Prem, for giving this opportunity to interact with Amit. I am so glad Cafe Mutual always comes with something unique, and you are bringing the entire society of MFDs together, making this business to grow. Congratulations to you, and great working with you, Prem. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your kind words. And as you're talking, I was going through some of the comments. So Suresh DB says it's a very interesting session, very informative and nice session. Says RG Agarwal, very nice. Thank you very much, Narendra. Very good session, says Ram Krishna. Mukesh Kumar says, thanks a lot, sir. And there's a suggestion, Amit, that you should write a book. But before that, since as you can see on the chat panel, that there will be more detailed sessions which Amit will be taking. Please register for those sessions. You will definitely find more details, step-by-step process on how to go about it. Thank you, Amit, for that wonderful, very informative, very detailed session. Thank you, KS, for bringing out those insights, asking the right questions, covering the right areas. You looked at both the practical and the conceptual and the process part of it. So I think all in all, a wonderful session. And yes, and it is like one final point I think we all need to emphasize is that, we need to do it today. So like Amit had used the example, the quotation of Warren Buffett, right? Saying
Yeah.
that the best time to plant a tree was 20 years back. But if you've not done it, then the second best time is today.
Today.
So if you have not done succession planning, you should start straight away today. That's in the best interest of your clients, your employees, and definitely your own family. So with that, I would also like to wish you a very happy festive season. Whole host of festivals are lined up. There's Eid, I think, a week later, and then okay. So with that, stay safe, stay healthy, and finally, thank you, Aditya Birla, Sun Life Mutual Fund, for sponsoring this lessons from the masters. Thank you, our expert Amit Trivedi, and thank you, KS, for moderating it so well. And thank you, audience, for being with us.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you so much,
Bye-bye.
Prem. Thanks to
Bye-bye.
everyone. God bless you and look forward to.
Okay.
Please do register. There were links available. Otherwise, we will send the mails for the links and we will have a detailed workshop and look forward for a next one more session on the learnings. Next one could be the how you can develop business even during the difficulties or the good times, both. I think Prem will come with an interesting themes and concepts and looking forward for the next session. Hopefully, we are not bringing one more Amit from somewhere. But definitely we'll bring one more Amit in terms of infinite learnings. That Amit will come.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
it.
Thank you so much.